Well, hello and welcome. I'm very excited that you're able to join us for this week's panel conversation. We've got a couple of excellent panelists that are going to participate in the conversation today. The topic on the agenda is how do you maintain a sense of community in a socially distanced world? We're going to be talking to two local government leaders about how their community is stepping up to the challenge of engaging with their residents in a meaningful way, especially when you're in this difficult time of COVID. What we're really trying to do is to gather perspectives from what's working and the challenges that communities have overcome in dealing with engagement so that we can share them with other local government leaders to benefit from creative ideas on how to succeed during this really kind of difficult time. Here is the agenda for the day. I'll do a brief introduction for our panelists, and then we'll jump into asking the questions that we have for the panelists. We'll entertain some questions if there are any, and one of the things I will do is I'll allow the panelists as well to ask each other's questions if there's anything that prompts them to want to talk to each other a little bit more. And then I'll kind of go over some next steps in this overall process. So let me do a little introduction of our panelists. Our first panelist is Louie Lacasella, who is the assistant to the city manager in Murrieta, California. Louie leads up the community's legislative affairs and intergovernmental relations program, as well as plays a lead role in the city's public engagement efforts and in maintaining the community's performance metrics. He also took on the responsibilities recently of serving as the director of membership services for the Municipal Management Association of Southern California. This organization is an 800-member organization of local government leaders throughout the state. Louie has been recognized for his commitment to serving the public by several regional, state, and national associations, including ICMA and Cal ICMA, and the League of California Cities. Louie, I have to say that was a pretty impressive list of recognitions. I think it reflects really well on the work you're doing in the profession. And I would really welcome you to share a little bit more about yourself.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Matt, for that introduction. So as you mentioned, I'm the assistant to the city manager here at the city of Murrieta. And as Mark knows, the assistant to role wears many, many hats. You're the generalist. And if there's any problem or a topic that comes to the city manager's attention, usually the city manager tasks you with tackling that issue. So I've been really fortunate to be able to progress in the city manager's office, starting as a management intern, moving up to a management aide, a management analyst, a senior manager analyst, and now assistant to the city manager. And as Matt mentioned, serving on the executive board for the MASC, which is a crucial and very key association here in Southern California, really training the next generation of leaders. So thank you so much, Matt, for the introduction.
Yeah, absolutely, Louie. I really appreciate you taking the time and being with us today. Let me introduce our second panelist. Mark Aalders is the assistant to the city manager in the city of Yorba in Orange County. He's been with the city since 2006, so a long commitment to the community, and his position encompasses a variety of roles around public information, human resources, and I think a specialty in the risk and emergency management area. He went to school at California State University, Fullerton, and Long Beach, and has a master's in public administration. One of the impressive credentials that Mark brings to the table is his work in the military. He had some active duty and has been in reserves for a long period of time, extending over a couple of decades now, in both the Marines and the Air Force Reserves. He also just finished up his role as a president of the California Insurance Pool Authority, which benefits communities through pooling resources and assets, helping communities just to mitigate risk better and keep their insurance costs down. And let me just say, Mark, as a former city manager and understanding the insurance industry a little bit, but really looking to guys like you that know the business, the value that you do in helping communities manage risk and helping keep insurance costs down, I think it goes underappreciated sometimes because it's such an important role for a community to be paying attention to. So thanks for that work and for being here. And I'd love to just learn a little bit more about your background.
Thank you, Matt. I appreciate it. Yes, predominantly, as Louie mentioned earlier, assistant to the city manager is a jack of all trades, as we like to say. You do a lot of the grunt work, if you will, and having been fortunate here to be with Yorba for a lengthy period of time, I've had some good exposure to human resources, risk management, emergency management, and of course, public information. I've seen the organization grow as well in this time frame. So for me, it's been a rewarding aspect of the job. And with the military service, it's lent itself to, forming a leadership role and being able to guide staff and move us forward, especially through this era of COVID-19 and emergency management in general.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks a lot for spending the time today with us. Really looking forward to this. Let me just kind of kick off the topic. The topic for the day is maintaining a sense of community in a socially distanced world. One of the things that I think we all appreciate is that COVID-19 has disrupted everything in everybody's life, not only from a resident and a business perspective, but also from a municipal organizational perspective. I mean, there's nothing normal about what we're going through. And given this unsettled environment, the importance and the challenge of paying attention and staying connected with residents and that connection between residents and decision makers in the community, because the things that are going on in our communities keep going on, and the value of making sure that you have that connection with your residents becomes all that much more important, particularly because of the disruption that is being created in everybody's life. It's created all sorts of challenges, in terms of just even reacting to the way municipalities operate in a remote and virtual fashion. How do you go about getting public input on important topics? And just as importantly is, how can the services that are being delivered by municipalities, how can those be adapted, or how do they need to be adapted in order to accommodate public needs on the services that they require on a regular basis? So it becomes a really big challenge. If you kind of think about even the best of times, engagement was always difficult. It's always been a challenge for finding effective ways to get people involved and having an easy opportunity to participate in the matters of municipalities. And I think sometimes we create our own barriers, the timing of the meetings, conflict with either family issues or maybe meetings during the day. But it's always been a difficult challenge to find effective ways to have residents involved in those kind of topics. And then now all of a sudden you throw on top of it COVID-19 and just the way that people are operating remotely and not having the traditional ways of public engagement to be available. How do you go about making sure that people feel like they're part of a community? Because at the end of the day, you really want to make sure that people are proud of where they live. They want to be able to brag about where they live, and that they're getting all of the services that they need on a regular basis. But also having the knowledge that they have a little bit of a say in that process. So let's talk about the questions that we want to explore today. We have 3 questions in front of us, and they're all focused around engagement and maintaining that sense of community. The first is, how has your communications engagement strategy evolved since the beginning of the pandemic? The second question is, how does resident engagement influence your success in maintaining a sense of community? And then finally, I'd like to learn a little bit more about the tools that you're using to measure feedback from a resident's perspective during these challenging times. So with that, I would like to just kind of kick into the questions now. And Louie, let's start with you. How has Murrieta's communication and engagement strategy evolved since the beginning of the pandemic?
Perfect. Well, thank you, Matt. Honored to be here today and talk about this important issue, especially during these challenging times, as you mentioned. Not only is California the center for COVID hospitalizations right now, but we've also had to, adapt our engagement last year as well with the worst fire season in the state's history. And as you know, COVID has really hit the local government's budgets, especially those larger in cities that depend on tourism. Fortunately, things here at the city of Murrieta are stable, and that's the result of years of responsible fiscal management and also passing a sales tax a couple of years as well, a sales tax measure. So that's kind of helped us kind of levy this storm right now. So I'll talk about, strategies that we've done on the employee engagement side, on the business engagement side, and then also on the resident side as well. So on the employee engagement side, we made some changes from a weekly city manager update. We would have an update from the city manager provided to all staff, updating them just not on the case numbers, but also the different tier systems that were going on in the state of California, and particularly our region, and basically other city projects and services that were going on. So we really used this as a way to connect all our teams together as we were on different shifts, and some of our employees were actually 100% virtually. So we really wanted to make sure that our employees were engaged and informed about what was going on. On the business engagement side, we did a variety of different strategies than we've done in the past. We sent out weekly and sometimes even daily e-newsletters to the business community, updating them on what was open, what was closed, and also providing them with sources, grant opportunities, and loan opportunities. The federal government was providing loans, our state was, our county was providing grant opportunities. So really putting that into one concise email where the business could go down the list, see which grant opportunity they were eligible for, and then apply. And then one of those grant opportunities was actually the City of Murrieta's Back to Business Grant Program. And I was really happy and honored to manage this program with my amazing colleagues. What we did was we reprogrammed community development block grant funds, and there was no general fund or CARES Act fund impact by running this program here at the city. So we were able to provide businesses with a $10,000 grant to help them during this difficult time. What we also did too, to connect the business with the residents and really changed our engagement strategy here. We just didn't give the check to the business. We went to the business location, took a picture of their physical location, took a picture of their owner, their staff, compiled all those pictures and presented them to the community via social media every week. So the community was aware of, the businesses that were receiving the grants in our city, their contact information. And the idea behind this was to keep our residents to shopping local, helping out those mom and pop restaurants during this difficult time. So the police department did several fun, interactive, virtual contests during COVID. The first one was #quarantine haircuts. And as you know, the salons being closed in California. So we've had residents, even myself, where we have to cut my hair at home. And obviously we're not professionals, so sometimes that may turn out funny looking. So we had a contest where residents could submit pictures of kind of like not so well turned out quarantine haircuts to the police department. And then the police department packaged those all together and actually showcased it on the police department's webpage. So it really went with building that sense of community where the police department, obviously their main job is to keep us safe and enforce the law, but actually have a little bit of a fun side there regarding the virtual world and everything being closed. And the police department also, they did a sidewalk chalk competition for the residents as well. So, young adults, children, they could paint stuff on their different sidewalks and then present those pictures to the police department. And then we showcase that in our social media as well. So a couple of fun activities we did, to try to keep the community together during this difficult time. And in the police department, fire department, and even city hall, we have citizen academies. So residents can, kind of put themselves in the shoe of a police officer, a fire officer, kind of learn about what they deal with day to day, kind of the training they go through to become an officer. I actually went through the police department's academy here in Murrieta, and it really opened my eyes of how officers need to make quick decisions on the job. So things like that we've done, implemented, and really have kept the sense of community in Murrieta. Some of the main fun activities we've done in this virtual world.
Yeah. Louie, how is kind of a question I had asked Mark, what's been your experience in terms of just the level of engagement that you've experienced during COVID now that everything is pretty much virtual?
Yeah, so on the social media sites, level engagement has been where it's been before, or it's actually increased. Like some of these activities I mentioned, the police department side, we received a lot of likes, a lot of comments. So there was a lot of residents on there, interacting on the city's social media page more so than we probably would have gotten in past cities. So I think engagement has been there, even with COVID going on.
Are you finding success with engagement at your city council, at the city council level during meetings? Or how are you doing that?
Yeah, I've heard a lot of other cities in our region have had an increase in engagement at the city council level. I want to say maybe ours has been slightly. It's been pretty much stable though for us. We haven't really seen that much of an increase on the council meetings. There might have been a couple council meetings, but I have a feeling that those were maybe just particular to the item that was on the agenda and not just so much of what's going on in general.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, thank you. Louie, can you talk about the tools that Murrieta is using to help measure resident feedback? Yeah, not only from your residents, but also your businesses during the pandemic?
Yeah, so we've done a variety of different methods and tools to measure feedback. We've done community satisfaction surveys, and we plan on doing more of those in the future as well. And that basically gives us a good understanding of the residents and the community's feedback on particular city services and what they're looking for in the city. We've done general plan update workshops, surveys with that. As you mentioned, when you introduced me, we implemented a transparency portal. And part of that portal was residents could submit data and records that they would like to see added to the portal. And the hope there was, they would request something that they'd be interested in seeing how that the performance is or how that's being measured. So yeah, we've done a variety of different measures to, engage the community and also receive their feedback in the process too.
Any recommendations that you would have for communities because of the work that you're doing in developing performance metrics, particularly now that you're in the pandemic? Maybe it's through that transparency portal, but ways that you're connecting the input that you're getting and the performance metrics today with any strategic planning that your council is doing?
Awesome. So that's an excellent question. And I've actually had a couple of conversations with that at cities within our region. So a lot of cities, we know they're going to be hit on the budget side because of the impacts of COVID. And a lot of these cities are going to be looking to pass sales tax measures in the coming years. What was really successful at Murrieta, and Murrieta is a conservative community, if you guys are not aware, what we did was we really did a good job of highlighting how we would spend that sales tax money and then putting that in the transparency portal. So the community understood if they passed the sales tax measure, X, Y, and Z would be done. And every quarter and every year, we would provide that information to them so they could see how their money was being funded. And I think that's going to be really key for cities going forward, because the cities are going to have to find a way to make up the lost revenue. So if you pass a sales tax, our recommendation here my recommendation would be, to get that transparency portal and really do the legwork, communicating ongoing with the public how you're going to be spending that money.
Yeah, very well stated. And I think that's just a wonderful point to share with other communities. So thanks. Mark, what tools are you using in Yorba to help you measure feedback from residents?
Well, actually, we've just embarked on, we're out right now looking at RFPs for a customer service tracking system. We've not really had a formal one before. One of our departments, Public Works in particular, used to have a prior kind of system, but it was just a little bit hodgepodge. So we moved ahead with actually looking at good systems that might work for us. That way we can track quickly how our staff is responding to customers. We've not had a downturn in business. So the good news for us is that building permits are still being pulled, development's still ongoing, businesses are in fact still opening. So that's a good trending, if you will, for us as far as a measuring stick. Our council has always made themselves extremely available. So should a resident in the community have a question or a concern, they're able to email the council directly. And of course, staff will respond instantly to those inquiries. And then lastly, we've also put out customer surveys via kind of a poll via our newsletter, to see where people are at and what they need in this time of COVID-19. So kind of using those three measuring sticks, we've been able to kind of move forward and, provide any additional services that are needed. But as a whole, I think this new customer service tracking system will be our best course going forward.
Yeah, thanks. Could you just expand a little bit on that tracking system, just so that people have a clear understanding as to how that is structured and how you're using it?
Certainly, yeah. So there'll be two different aspects to it. One will be for our Parks and Recreation department. In large part, if people have ideas or additional programs, or do we need to expand our programs? So when customers call in, and of course maybe that program's not available, it's going to start to measure as to how many additional inquiries we had about a specific program or service that's provided. So they'll know, going forward, like, well, can we expand upon this? Can we get more instructors? Can we improve that program? And then secondly, is just timing, isn't it? Everything, a lot of people want instantaneous answers, or their project wants to be pushed through quicker. So it's not only just for this time of COVID-19, but it's also going forward, that hopefully when we get past this, we're able to move those things, expedite things at a far quicker pace. So ironically, COVID-19 has been somewhat of a good push, if you will, for us to move into that electronic world and then expedite business for our customers.
Yeah, and that should feed into your metrics for just kind of tracking performance and things that you're doing.
Exactly.
On behalf of the community. Okay, cool. Thank you. Those are the three questions that we wanted to pose to each of you. I would be curious, I'd like to throw on maybe one additional one that just coming to my mind, and that is as you start thinking about the biggest challenge for your organizations during COVID, and I'm thinking about the internal operations and the way that you're responding internally to delivering services, as well as where you're going in the future. And I'm thinking about communities that may stay more remote, more may come back all into City Hall. I'd love to get your perspectives from each of your communities on what you anticipate, what the biggest issues have been, and what you anticipate coming forward. And Louie, let's start with you.
Okay, perfect. So, let's see, issues going forward. I think time is going to tell how many businesses actually survive COVID and, actually remain in our cities. There may be some spaces that were traditionally used by certain businesses that wouldn't be used anymore. I think given COVID, a lot of more businesses are unfortunately going to be looking to do their operations exclusively online, rather than having that brick and mortar here in the city of Murrieta. I think that's just going to be the changing way on the business side, and that will have its impacts on the cities, the cities and their budgets. On the resident side, residents were already comfortable using social media, I feel, before the pandemic happened. So I think once we can start holding events in person, I could see residents going back to that. I don't think that's going to be a big change. But I really think on the business side, moving operations virtually, that's going to be a big change. And maybe some things like, the drive-through voting, I could see maybe being done in the future as just a convenient way to encourage people to drop off their ballots, and maybe other things like online plan check submittals. I can maybe see that continuing, as well as just an extra tool that the public could utilize instead of have come in person. But after COVID is hopefully settled, there's going to be those residents that's still going to want to come in person and do things how we were doing before COVID.
Yeah, thank you for that. Mark, organizationally, what have you found to be the biggest challenge in dealing with COVID? And what do you anticipate the future actions of the community are going to be as it relates to just operations?
From an organization side, in large part for us, especially with City Hall having appointments, the costs, of course, to protect our employees by installing various plexiglass and providing masks and such services we recognize that those services, of course, will never go away. So, we are kind of looking at the long haul as to what we can do, should something like this occur again, but to keep it personable for our residents. Our pride has always been staff being able to directly engage with a resident and have that sit down. So it really is going to be, I think, an undertaking before, COVID even comes to an end, hopefully later this year, that, we've got to reinvent that wheel somewhat as to how we do that. And then, again, it is the business aspect. Has been some fallout. We have a lot of smaller businesses in Yorba Linda. So luckily we are a property-based tax community more so than anything. So our sales taxes, while they may have gone down, we're not impacted in the same fashion. So we're fortunate there. But as with anything, budgets are our key focus of the community and what you're spending that money on. So we'll really have to reevaluate some of the programs and services that we do have now, and maybe look at potential cutbacks. But hopefully for us, we'll be able to weather the storm and get through, and help the community get through this.
Yeah, thank you for that response. I'd like to give each of you an opportunity, if there was something that popped into your mind from the other panelists, if you have a question for each other. I'd welcome those now.
Oh, I was just gonna provide Mark with some feedback. So before I worked at the city of Murrieta, I worked at the city of Lake Forest, and we actually had that customer servers software module that you were talking about. So it was great because we would receive service issue complaints from residents, and then when we went to go write staff reports, we could look back and say, okay, in the last year, we received 100 tickets from the community in this particular area of the community regarding this particular issue. So it really helped on the metric side, helping us, determine if we need to put more money towards a certain program or not, and kind of the feedback that we were getting on our service. So we're actually working on implementing something similar here in Murrieta. We don't have it up as of yet, but I've seen once you have it up and functional, as my past city did, it has really great benefits.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, one aspect for us is, I think, we're a contract city in large part. So we have Orange County Fire Authority and Orange County Sheriffs. So I think for, just kind of a little insight, as you say, with your police department, is how can we engage with them more directly? I think that's always a little bit of a lapse when you don't have in-house public safety. So for us, maybe there's something that we can look at. So I appreciate those comments earlier about how possibly we can, engage our contract portions as well.
Yeah. Well, thanks, guys. This has been a really great conversation, and the perspectives that you shared, I think, just will really resonate with a lot of communities. I think you have verified and validated the need to be adaptive and creative, and to recognize that you're really reacting to a brand new environment, but you're doing it on the ground, and you're doing it as a staff, demonstrating leadership through your council, through your staff, in all of the things that you're doing. And it's all about kind of those small touches and being available and paying attention to the needs that are coming up every day as you react, especially in California right now, just reacting to the issues that are confronting to you. And I think the pandemic is going to provide communities the opportunity to think differently. Mark, your focus on technology, I think, is a really valid. And Louie, you also said people they're comfortable with social media, and so the whole use of technology is going to become much more part of everybody's daily lives, whether you're still continuing to do some virtual work or just in the way that you're interacting and providing services. And the customer tracking system, Mark, that you're talking about, I think is a really right step and is really going to help you. So thanks for all of the thoughts and all the perspectives that you have that you've shared today. Just as a little bit of a follow-up, I will follow up today and send each of you an email with each other's contact information so that if you want to follow up with each other just to learn a little bit more or to kind of maintain that relationship. In your case, maybe you just want to drive down the road and grab coffee when you can. I really would also appreciate feedback from you, and I'll connect with you to get this just on ways that we can continue to improve this panel conversation with communities. We hold these things weekly, and typically we have 3 government leaders that are participating in the panel. COVID struck one of our panelists today, so she was not able to participate. Next week, we're going to be actually having leaders from East Point, Georgia, Coppell, Texas, and Brookhaven, Georgia. So we'll have another great conversation next week. Well, we hope that these conversations have been worth your time. We really appreciate the perspectives that you have shared. I know the communities that see this will benefit from the comments, and it's all about learning from others and taking advantage of things that are working in other communities already. So with that, thank you for spending the day today with me, and I'll look forward to connecting with each of you later.
All right. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Matt.
Thanks, guys. We'll talk to you soon.